It's Le Mans weekend and the countdown to a remarkable event, the 24 Hours of Le Mans Virtual.
With real racing on hold, we've seen an explosion in activity around racing esports, with top drivers and top sim drivers racing each week in front of huge audiences worldwide.
Today, that reaches its climax with the greatest sim race of all, the 24 Hours of Le Mans Virtual. 200 drivers, 170 sim rigs in 37 countries around the world racing for 24 hours. Quite simply, it's never been done before.
Welcome everyone to this unique event, and especially welcome to Ferrari fans, the Tifosi, joining us from around the world. The Scuderia has 3 cars entered into this unique event, operating from the Ferrari Museum in Maranello, and we'll be going across to Maranello to speak to those guys shortly. But first, let's introduce our panel of Motorsport Network experts. We have Jon Noble, motorsport.com F1 editor and a keen esports follower, and Charles Bradley, global editor-in-chief and an expert on endurance racing. Hello, guys.
So, John, to kick us off, give us some context for today's event, with obviously real racing now restarting again after the coronavirus pandemic. This in many ways feels like the culmination of this sort of unique virtual racing season.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a remarkable few months for esports. When we stopped racing, we went to Australia. The race was called off. Everything was into lockdown. There was a bit of a step into some esports. We know Lando Norris was interested. We knew Max Verstappen was interested. But, there's been a bit of a snowball momentum now. I mean, Charles Leclerc a few months ago probably hadn't even played very much at all. Now he's a star on Twitch. He's got his own followers. He's playing regularly. He's very successful. And, he'll be out there this afternoon gunning for success. I think it's transformed the industry, transformed the interest in esports, transformed drivers' perceptions of it. Like, what happened in 3 months probably would have taken 3 or 4 years if racing had been normal.
And Charles, can you give us an idea of the scale of this operation? I mean, the entry list, as we've just touched on, is pretty incredible for today's event. But how close is it to the reality of a Le Mans 24 hours, which of course should have been happening this weekend?
Yeah, it's so sad that we're not actually enjoying the real thing this weekend, because there's nothing quite like the Le Mans 24 hours in real life as a festival of motorsports. But the virtual Le Mans is going to come close, I think, today. For one thing, they're racing for real trophies. This isn't going to be an icon in somebody's collection. It's going to be on somebody's mantelpiece proudly as the winners or podium finishers of the first ever virtual 24 hours of Le Mans. And the lengths that the real world organisers, the ACO, the FIA, WEC, that they've gone to, along with the esports experts like Motorsport Games and Studio 397, it's unreal. If you look at the setup they've got in Paris, it's a real mission control vibe to it. They called it Studio Gabriel. It's a really huge undertaking. And they actually have teams physically driving in the studio. So we're going to see that today as well. They've got a great commentary team. They're going to have some star name guests coming in on Zoom. And I think on track, we're going to see, 50. It's kind of a mixture of real world teams and sim racing teams. So we're going to see 4 drivers in each car. The majority of teams have gone for 2 real world star name drivers that we'd expect to see at Le Mans, and then 2 sim racing pros, the guys who race for money effectively. That's their livelihood all through the week. So we're going to see probably 100 of each in the cars today. Each driver has to complete a minimum, I think it's 4 hours in the event, but no more than 7 hours. So the sim racing gun can't take over the car for the entire race. So it's all going to be very fair. And then, of course, we saw in qualifying yesterday, if it's going to be as competitive as that, it's going to be a fantastic event, very competitive. And the overall class, which is the prototype class, they're using LMP2 Oricas for this one. And then in GTE, where the variety is, as always, we've got the Ferrari, the 488 GTE, the Aston Martin Vantage, the Porsche 911 RSR, and the Corvette C7R. So we're going to see some fantastic racing in both the classes today. And I'm really, really pumped for it.
It is amazing, isn't it? I mean, the quality of the field. I mean, the best sim races in the world. We've got the reigning F1 esports champion and top esports drivers, as well as top Formula One drivers. You know, Leclerc, Gasly, Verstappen, Norris, and world champions Button, Alonso, Le Mans champions as well. But just clear up one thing for those who perhaps not so expert on the world of sim racing. Why is it that in a situation like this that the sim drivers tend to be a fraction quicker? We saw it in qualifying yesterday. They tend to be a fraction quicker than the real world drivers. Is it to do with the feel, or is it to do with just knowing the fine tuning of the rigs that they're sitting in?
I think it's multi factors, really. I mean, they're used to driving these rigs, driving these games, knowing the subtle tricks you need to be successful. We saw Jenson Button says he's been practicing for 4 hours a day. Well, you can imagine some of the sim races, they've been doing 8 hours a day, maybe 9 hours a day. You know, it's finding out all the different unique lines you need to use. It's understanding the feedback you get from the steering wheel will be very different to real life. Different sensations, you know, using your eyes much more than, you know, the feel of your body when you're racing a car. So it's a different game. And I think, you know, the fact that real world drivers, you know, like Charles Leclerc, Stoffel Van Dorn's done very well. We've seen Nicholas Latifi adapt, you know, when he's done some Formula One stuff very, very quickly. They can transition very fast. But like in real world racing, when you're down to the final 2/10, the final 1/10, even those final hundredths, you know, that's where the real difficulty gets. And it's as competitive, maybe even more competitive than some real world, you know, top level categories.
Well, as you can hear, we've managed to make our connection. With about 55 minutes to go to the start of the race, we can cross live now to Maranello and hear from the Ferrari team that's going to be racing at Le Mans. And first of all, let's hear from their head of competition, Antonello Coletta. Antonello, this is a real first for Ferrari. How important was it for you to take part in this race?
Oh, when my friend Jon Noble called me, immediately understood the importance of this project. And but the problem was that we don't have a virtual car, and worked a lot to make up. And we received a model just last week, but now we tested a lot, and I hope that we are ready. But we stay here in a special location in the Ferrari Museum, where exists a real exhibition of the history of Ferrari to Le Mans, and in other side, in other hall, we created a special setup with the simulators.
It's a remarkable thing, isn't it? We've got Ferrari fans from all over the world enjoying this show with us and wishing you all the very best for this 24 hours. I mean, Le Mans and Ferrari are so symbiotically linked throughout the history in the past. But just for those who are perhaps not so expert on esports, just tell us what you've got there in terms of engineering support and how much the team, if you like, can actually help the drivers.
But as I know, as I told you, we created a special setup with the simulators. But on the back of the hall, we have a virtual garage with the same technicians about the WEC, the same people that normally follow the races, and another team with the expert of eSport. As you know, for us, it's the first time. It's the first time for the endurance, because we have an academy with the young drivers. And for example, in the lineup of the 52, the car number 52, we have 2 drivers of our academy. But regarding the technicians, honestly, repeat, for us is the first time, but we hope to make a good job.
Well, thank you very much, Antonello, for joining us. I think we're going to hear from the drivers next.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. As mentioned there, Ferrari have got a pretty strong lineup when we take a look at it in terms of the spread in real world drivers and the esports drivers. So we're going to chat to a couple of them we've got Miguel Molina and Enzo Bonito. So it looks like we have Miguel first. Miguel, can you give us a little bit of insight into what the experience has been like so far and the scale of the event, and how has the chat among the drivers community been? Is there real buzz about this event?
Well, actually, it has been intense last weeks because we really know that this race is going to happen quite in a few weeks. So we had to develop a virtual car, and that was one of the most intensive things, to be ready and to have a really good base to participate on this virtual race. And actually, we are really happy about the result, and we are ready for racing today. And we'll see what's going to happen. But the most important thing here is to enjoy the moment, to enjoy the situation. We are all here in the Museo Ferrari to perform our cars. So at the end, I think we are ready to start.
Yeah, we're all hoping for a really, really entertaining event. Now, you're obviously used to real-world racing, but how does the team operate with the engineers here? Like, how are the strategy calls going to be playing out as we get to racing?
Well, actually, it's quite similar to the real life because we bring our technical department here to support us, and we are all centralized here. The cars to manage the best strategy possible and the best help from them possible close to us. So it has been the preparation as we are doing in a real race. So that was a quite surprising thing because I'm used to drive simulators at home, but for not so long period, like 1 year or something like that. And this became a real big thing. So actually, I'm really happy to be involved on this. We all know that will not gonna be an easy one, but with the help from the engineers and from the people here in Maranello, I think at least we will have fun.
Plenty of fun to be had over 24 hours, that's for sure. And just to give people at home an idea, actually how much can you change the setup of the car, the suspension, the aerodynamics, the physicalities of the car inside the sim?
Well, so you can really change a lot of things, and that's a job that to our sim racers experts, because they are more involved on this game, and at the end they make the setup with a compromise of their driving with our real drivers driving style. So, but as I said, there are plenty of things to change. You have suspension, springs, packers. You have a ride height, aerodynamic. So you have really a lot of things to change, and you feel the difference when you are changing it. So it was a nice experience, as I said, and now we need to put everything together to have a good one.
Well, we're wishing you the best of luck. Thank you so much for joining us, Miguel, and have a good race. We're now going to hear from his esports and sim racing counterpart, and that's Enzo Bonito, who has had quite a run himself in the esports world. He's a very successful driver. So let's see how the difference between being a sim racer and a real world racer. Hello, Enzo. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
Hello, guys. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Can you give us a little insight into how the team did in qualifying yesterday?
So I did the qualifying part. We ended up in P9 in the end. I think it's not too bad. I was trying to push a little bit. I mean, not a little bit. I was trying to push to get the car in the top 5 actually, but it really surprised me how far off we were, like 2 seconds from pole position, but 7 or 8 tenths from P5, I think. I wasn't super happy, but it's a 24-hour race, so it is what it is. There is lots of work to do still, so we will see.
a lot can happen over a period of 24 hours. That's for sure. But how different? Obviously, a lot of people joke about how long people can stay locked into their sim rig for hours and hours. But just how different of a feat is it to be sim racing for 24 hours?
Yeah, it's not as physical as a real car, but obviously you have all the pressure. You sweat a lot, even in the rig. It's not so easy. Lots of things to think about also in the virtual world. You know, strategy, many things. Obviously, we have the engineer here with us, but you, even when you are driving, you are always thinking at the same time. But yeah, the simulator is not so physical. But you are steering a wheel, and you are moving your legs on the pedals, and after a couple of stints it can be tricky, you know. So you need to be relaxed. You still have to do some physical training, I think, a little bit, but yeah, in the end it's not so crucial, but also not something not to forget.
Yeah, gotta stay alert even though you're sat down for a long time. But what does it mean to the sim racers to have the opportunity to compete against some top real world drivers as well?
Yeah, it's been happening a lot lately, but I think this is one of the biggest one, and it's honestly something I could never ever really would have never think of like a couple of years back, if we go back. So it's an honor to be a part of it, and it's an honor to be a part of it also with these colors. I mean, thinking of Ferrari that wants to make a good performance, and I also for myself and my teammates and the whole all the guys that are here working really hard, wanted to put that car together, or you know, at the highest place possible. It's something unbelievable, really, and it's happening all right now, and the next 24 hours are going to be literally fire.
Well, I'm sure the Tifosi will be fully behind you, Enzo. Good luck for the race. We'll all be watching.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Well, that was live from the Ferrari Museum in Maranello as they prepare their 3 works cars to tackle this incredible 24 hours of Le Mans Virtual. Just quite staggering, the scale of the event. It's been on TV all over the world. People are streaming it. They're following it on social media. It really is the culmination of this virtual racing season. But let's take a closer look then at the Ferrari entries. We have some cards to run through with you so you know who's actually driving the various different cars. We have the Nicholas Nielsen car, Nielsen, and we have Leo Stoltz and Lorito. They're amongst the sim racers involved in this Ferrari AF Corsa lineup. Of course, there's real world drivers too. We have Charles Leclerc and Giovinazzi, 2 Formula One stars. Leclerc, of course, now shaping up to become the leader of the Ferrari Formula One team for the long term. And Giovinazzi's been in the academy for many years and racing, of course, with Alfa Romeo Sauber. Enzo Bonito, we've just heard of, and David Tonizza, who is I believe, the reigning esports F1 world champion. So pretty strong lineup in that car. And then Miguel Molina, we were just hearing about, of course, David Perel, Sant'Orno, and Jordi Suarez from the Netherlands, who was qualifying the car yesterday. So thoughts on those lineups? Obviously, the one that really catches the eye is the Leclerc Giovinazzi car, John.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think it's quite a nice mixture. I mean, the rules stipulated that there had to be professional drivers and sim drivers, and I think it's made for a fascinating combination. You know, there'll be tactics at play. You'll want to put the sim drivers out for the moments where you really need speed. But I think there'll be an understanding of racing from the real world drivers. And also, if you're a sim driver, what a thrill to be part of a race, knowing that you're going to hand your car over to someone like Charles Leclerc.
I did the official post-qualifying press conference yesterday, and I was talking to there is Leclerc, in fact, and that's his Twitch channel. Of course, you can enjoy that with him as well. That's one of the exciting things about this esports sim racing world, is there's so many ways to engage with the drivers, aren't there? And there was a hilarious moment in one of the races recently where Leclerc realized that his girlfriend couldn't get into the house because she hadn't taken her keys. So he had to interrupt the race to go down and let her in. But yeah, just to pick up your point, I mean, just incredible speaking to the Pole City yesterday, who's a Slovenian, you know, operating basically out of his house. And I said, if you imagine in the real world, you look back down the grid at all the names you've got behind you, in this field. It's just mind blowing, and it's quite a big emotion for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what also for the drivers like Charles Leclerc, like Max Verstappen, like Lando, there's an engagement in esports that we've seen that they probably sometimes don't get in the real world. You know, Formula One race weekends, you know, a lot of work to go through, a lot of engineering meetings, a lot of media commitments, very few opportunities to mix with the fans. But you know, they're on Twitch, they're chatting to their fans, they're engaging on social media. You know, who would have imagined? Remember Charles Leclerc putting on the banana costume recently? You know, we're seeing things that wouldn't happen in the real world. So I'm sure if Charles tried to walk in the F1 paddock with a banana costume on, there wouldn't be many happy faces.
It's definitely been a real showcase for driver personalities, which is something that I guess compared to a lot of other sports, we don't get to see much of them because they're wearing a helmet, and we only hear from them when they're talking to the likes of us. So it's been really great to see their personalities really get a chance to shine, and putting them in positions of kind of more celebrities in their own right and real influencers. Have you guys been enjoying that aspect of it as well?
Absolutely. You know, we do see them on, you know, as media at Formula One race weekends. We do get up close to them. We do get to chat to them. We do see another side that perhaps you don't see in front of the television cameras, or perhaps you don't see, you definitely don't see when you're watching the racing. But I think it's that close engagement now with the fans. It's the fact that they're chatting directly to them. The fact that they're having, you know, bets and dares. Remember, Lando Norris shaved his hair at the start of the lockdown as part of a discussion with his fans. And I think they'll take on the lessons of these last few months. They'll take on the lessons of esports, the lessons of getting close to fans. And hopefully, you know, when we get back to real racing, it'll be better for the spectators as well.
I've always thought that one of the best shots in motor racing is that angle from above the dashboard, where it's this view, basically, you're looking straight into the driver's face. But because they've got the helmet on, you just can't see what their expression is. Watching qualifying yesterday, it was fantastic to see all the way the drivers were pulling faces in corners. You could tell if they'd messed it up or got it right by the way that their facial expression was. So I think it's a fascinating insight to be able to see that. And then watching, obviously, Charles's Twitch stream's been a lot of fun recently. I watched after his World Rallycross debut, which he did very badly at, and he was basically, oh, please let me have qualified for this race, and he hadn't made it, and he was like, oh, okay, what should we do now? So he got on the WhatsApp with Timo Scheider, and then went straight back to practicing the game just between them and one of the other drivers who've been eliminated. So I think they find it a lot of fun, and it's great to be able to watch it from such close quarters.
Well, we should be hearing from Charles after his first stint, so maybe we will be able to get a little bit of insight into how he's feeling. I'm sure there won't be any banana costumes, but you never know with Charles nowadays. But make sure you are looking out for that on our social networks. We will be posting that interview as soon as we get it through. Let's take you through the full grid. Should we take a look at the full lineup? And it's pretty astonishing, as we've said, the names of the drivers that we've managed to secure for this 24 Hours of Le Mans Virtual. This is the GTE category, so we have the number 93 Porsche with Nick Tandy in pole position currently. We have another Porsche following up, raced by Neil Jani, taking the first stint for that team. We were talking previously about the Ferrari lineup. I think they, as Enzo said, we have one of the Ferraris in P9 there. If we take a look at the next slide, we've also, yep, there he is. There's Charles Leclerc ready and waiting in P9. We've got Simona de Silvestro, though, on P7. That's great to see Simone in there. Any of the others in this GTE category that are taking real note for everybody?
I just thought it was interesting that although we had Tandy on pole there, it was Josh Rogers, who's the Porsche world champion of esports. He plays in that Super Cup game all the time. And it's interesting to see how it's always the sim racer who gets to set the fastest time. But when it comes to the race, I think we'll see we'll see a slightly different picture emerge. I think the real world drivers will be able to get up to that pace, and they'll be getting some tips as they go along. So I think it's going to be fascinating to watch as the race develops. Qualifying is one thing, racing is over 24 hours is quite another.
Well, one of the beauties of this event, of course, is that you can do things that simply wouldn't be possible in the real world. We've touched on it already, but the idea that stars like Max Verstappen, who drives for Red Bull, and Lando Norris, who drives for McLaren, could share a car at Le Mans. Penske, who've barely featured in the history of Le Mans, entering a car this year with quite an interesting lineup of real world racers, including Simon Pagenaud, of course, the Indy 500 winner. And obviously Leclerc driving a GT car with a Formula One season to do. Isn't that one of the things that we love about this, the fact that there's a fantasy element? And I think that probably wins over a whole new audience, not just to esports, but to motorsport in general. What do you think? Absolutely. I totally agree. You know, when we look back at the, you know, with the rose tinted glasses to how racing was in the 60s, you know, you talk about Jim Clark jumping in touring cars or doing this one weekend, or Sterling Moss doing different stuff. It doesn't happen these days in the real world. Formula One drivers race in Formula One, and that's pretty much it. You don't often see them do very much. But esports has opened up a new world. And the fact that esports has become, you know, so much more high profile, so professional, the drivers are getting a challenge from doing it. It's opened their eyes to do different things. You know, Lando Norris did the Indy 500. You know, a bit of a, you know, esports controversy there when he was taken out of the lead. You see this instance. He's done the Supercars Championship. We've seen Max do Supercars. They're trying different things. You know, what a thrill for us as motor racing fans, seeing drivers like, you know, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, teammates together, putting aside all the rivalries they have on track in Formula One to compete, and we can get right up close, you know, and watch them and engage with them on these channels.
It's totally correct. Shall we take a look? Because the LMP class is definitely one that has a lot of names, big names, as we can see here. So we have the number 4 car driven by Tom Dillerman, which is in pole position, closely followed by Kelvin van der Linde, who is an endurance racer. He is in P2. We also have Formula E star Oliver Rowland in P3. He's also been doing extremely well in the Race at Home Formula E series. He showed himself to be actually quite a established sim racer, as well as in the real world. We have Arthur Rougier in number 3 in the Rebellion Williams esports car, and then we have Max Verstappen for Team Redline in number 5. I think that's quite a dangerous position for a Max Verstappen. I think don't you guys think? I feel like he's going to come out. He's going to come out pretty strong from that P5 position. We've got another Formula E star in the form of Stoffel van Dorn, who we mentioned again, showed real promise in the sim racing world. That's for Veloce Esports, joined by his compadre Antonio Felix da Costa. We have Raffaele Marciello in the number 1 Rebellion Williams. Will Stevens is back for some more racing in the Jota Team Redline car. And then Sasha Finestras in the number 18 Veloce Esports car in P10 there. We've got Panis in the Panis Racing AAA in P11, closely followed by Larry Tenvoord in the number 46. Fernando Alonso is a name that I think a lot of people are going to be looking for during this race. Something tells me that that's going to be one that a lot of people are looking out for as he looks for another Le Mans victory. We've got Agustin Canapino, in the Rebellion Williams Esports as well. And then in P15, Sebastian Prillo.
Interesting there as well, Jess. You've got a couple of father and son combinations with Olivier Panis driving with his son and Andy Prio driving with his son as well. And Alex Young is also doing it. His son's only about 12 years old, I think. He's racing at Le Mans with him. That must be an unbelievable feeling.
And again, something we just wouldn't necessarily see in real world racing, because as with esports, there's no real need for any. The young whippersnappers are obviously very fast and very agile, but you know, there's been such a spread of ages in sim racing that it's lovely to see that can happen. So number 16 car is number 16 position in the number 17 car is Richard Bradley. We have Brendan Hartley in P17. Jose Maria Lopez is in 18th. With Jean-Eric Verne in 19, and then in P20 is Bruno Senna. Jenson Button is followed closely behind in P21. Good to see Tatiana Calderon joining the grid in P23. And then to end it all up is in P25, Andre Negrão.
And yeah, that Calderon car is an all-female lineup as well, isn't it? Of course, which is the Richard Mille car that was also going to race at Le Mans and will race in the postponed Le Mans in September.
Absolutely. We've got Simon Pagenaud back, racing potentially not alongside Lando Norris, because that could be quite controversial based on certain events that have happened in the past. But there we go. That's the full starting grid for the LMP category. And we're about ready to hand over to the live feed, are we not, James?
Yes, I think we are. We're about a minute away from the live feed starting. So 200 drivers, 170 sim rigs in 37 different countries. This is just an incredible event. It says so much about the scale of that esports has reached, hasn't it? Final thoughts, Charles and John.
Yeah, just looking forward to it really kicking off. One interesting thing, I was thinking back, I spoke to Roger Penske about how he'd approach a real world Le Mans attack in future. And he said, we'd need to come here and do it in a GT car or something lower level. Well, I think this is the perfect opportunity for him to take a virtual look-see with his drivers in their car to see what it takes to run 24 hours around the Circuit de la Sarthe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key thing now is, let's tune in, let's watch it, and let's get started. I can't wait.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. That's it for this special show. The pre-race grid formalities are beginning very shortly. We hope you all enjoy the 24 Hours of Le Mans Virtual coming up in a moment. And remember, you can find regular updates on the race and progress of the Ferrari team and all the other teams on motorsport.com, on the official Ferrari channel on Motorsport TV. And to get a second screen experience going, why not join the thread on the community chat on ferrarichat.com, where there is a thread open about this race. So yeah, fantastic build up to this race. Hopefully we'll be able to cross over shortly and join the live pictures coming from Le Mans as they count down to the race, which is beginning in about 28 minutes from now.